I definitely want to talk to you and ask you, what do you think about the NBA draft and how people are saying it's rigged? You know, I got a lot to say about that. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm sure you do.
yeah,
Well, look, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist as far as that type of thing is concerned.
hmm
However, there are some things. I made a little list. There are
hey,
sometimes I'm not. I don't put it. I'll put it this way. I
uh,
wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me if it were rigged.
mm,
Um, I there have been some drafts where people have where franchises have gotten the top pick at
mm,
just clutch times. I'll just put it that way.
mm.
And prime example of it is what we just witnessed with Dallas. I mean, they just blew up their franchise with one of the what some folks consider one of the dumbest trades in NBA history. I just think it was a terrible trade. I don't think it was necessarily the worst in NBA history.
I don't even think it was a terrible trade.
Okay.
I really don't. And let me tell you why. And this is what I think a lot of I call them part-time fans. A lot of people may not understand. If you look at tapes of Luka Doncic, his first 2, 3 years in the league, he was slim and just dunking on everybody.
Mhm.
The issue has come about over the past couple of years of him not being in shape.
It's conditioning.
Not yeah, his conditioning is just awful. You
Mhm.
saw a thing where Nico, the GM, they had this video where it shows him taking a beer out of Luca's hand because he's like, he needs to get in shape. And after the finals last year, with him being incapable of just being able to slow somebody down on defense. Nico was looking at this season and he was thinking long term. Luca is not committed to his body. You got Anthony Davis, who when his first game there was just dominating. But what happens? He gets hurt halfway through the game. That's his biggest knock, just being able to stay healthy. And I can see why, Dallas fans are upset. And I do also see why people say it's a bad trade because of the youth with Luca and what you see with him being a superstar. Nobody thought he was going to be traded. I didn't. I
Right.
didn't think that would happen.
Right.
But Nico saw it a different way.
I mean, they made a decision. I mean, he's a professional general manager in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to me, if I were a Dallas fan, which I'm not, I am a Wizards fan, so which makes me very
Woo!
bitter. Yeah, it makes me one. It's just bad in my world. But
yeah,
in
yeah.
if the Wizards, let me put it, if my team had Luka Doncic,
Mm-hmm.
okay, if we wanted to trade him, if in fact we had this guy who's one of the best scorers in the league, and we just have a problem with his conditioning, and we just are tired of his mess,
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting more than what they got, and I'm not secretly trading him to the Lakers. I'm telling people Luka's on the market, and I'm getting a haul.
Why do you think they picked the Lakers? I mean, AD, because you got Giannis out there. You gonna do a trade like that. A lot of people say, hey, if it was Giannis, I could see it.
Right,
But so
right.
maybe
I
that's your thing right there.
I think it was, and I don't know because I'm not an NBA insider or anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a little better than a casual fan, but I'll say I'm a casual fan. The I think it was a LeBron thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
LeBron was like, we need to make a move to make a playoff run. And the Lakers guy, what's his GM's name? What's the guy's name?
Palinka, Rob
Palinka.
Palinka. Yeah,
Palinka
yeah.
saw what he wanted to do, what he could do, made a call to Dallas. And I guess they said, well, you know what? We got this guy who we need to get rid of. And y'all are willing to part ways with Anthony Davis. Let's do this. And that's what they did. And if Kyrie hadn't gotten injured,
Different story.
the Mavericks would have been a playoff contender. I don't think they were a finals contender, but they would have been a solid playoff contender and could have built on that for the future. So
Agreed.
So that
Agreed.
was that.
Yeah.
In so it
Yeah.
wasn't. Yeah, I agree that it's it's overstating it to say it's the worst trade in history and some of the things that I've heard, hyperbolic things I've heard, but I'm using that as an example for I can understand the NBA draft coming into question sometimes. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
either I mean there are time there. I mean the classic one was the very first one with Patrick Ewing in the Knicks.
Yeah. Yeah. I was waiting for you to mention that
Well,
one. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was the classic one, but there were
Yeah.
just a lot of ones I put down. Let's see, when the Cavaliers happened to get LeBron James, who just you know hometown
It
boy,
could seem like it's the greatest luck in the world
right?
because the Cavs, but with the Cavs, that I believe that was one of the times when they were one of the people most likely to get
That's
the
true. They were
pick.
bad.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah.
They were
But
bad. But here's another one wrote down.
all right,
All right, because some of them I have the percentages because I did some research.
all right,
Chicago Bulls
right.
got Derrick Rose in 2008. They had a 1.7% chance of winning that lottery. They
Woo!
won that lottery.
And where's Derrick Rose from?
Chicago. That's my
Chicago.
point.
Yeah,
That's my point.
Chicago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my
yeah,
point.
yeah,
That's my
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Cleveland Cavaliers.
Mm,
They had a 2.8 chance of getting after LeBron did the decision,
mm,
and everyone's like, "Oh man, he left Cleveland." Blah blah blah. They get
yeah.
Kyrie Irving.
Yep. Yep.
The Los Angeles Hornets. I mean, the New Orleans Hornets. They get
Yep.
Anthony Davis.
Yep. They
Um,
sure did. Yep.
and
Yep.
San Antonio Spurs get Victor Wembanyama.
Uh-huh.
There were just times when it seems to work really well, not just for the team. I don't think when I say I wouldn't put it past the NBA for it to be rigged. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they're necessarily favoring any particular franchise so they'll win, but they do favor teams that have good markets and where they can develop assets, I think, that they can build the league that will help them build the league.
Do you think it also might be because a good storyline is a great marketing tool? Because you forgot one as well. Tim Duncan. Remember David
Oh, right,
Robinson got hurt?
right, Tim Duncan. But if I'm not mistaken, that just like the other time when you met with the LeBron one, the Spurs had a bad record that year, I
Right,
believe.
right, right, right.
So, and I mean,
But they had a bad record because David Robinson got hurt.
got hurt. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, I
yeah,
understand.
yeah,
I understand.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I have no. It's one of these things where
Mhm.
I don't, to tell you the truth, even though look, the worst thing the Wizards could have gotten, that's where they wound up yesterday. The worst, and I'm not saying
Right.
that because I'm like bitter or anything like that, because the Wizards, they could have had the reincarnation of Michael Jordan as number one pick, and the Wizards could have put him on the team, and we would still
Right.
maybe get to the play-in.
Well, the Wizards has a bad culture, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm a Lakers fan because of James Worthy. But being in DC, I do consider myself a Wizards fan.
Mhm.
I've gone to a lot of games, hung out. I'm a basketball guy, so
Mhm.
being in a city with a basketball team, I'm
Mhm.
like, you know what? I got to embrace the team.
Right.
But when you look at the Wizards, you look at basically the past 5-6 years, the culture is jacked up. And when they had players, like think about it, they had Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, they had Chris Webber, Jawan Howard. I mean, they've had players and they've just given away and broken up teams.
I'll
So
tell you
yeah,
what messed that up
what's that?
in my
Which
opinion.
one? The
That period you're talking about.
okay, yeah,
Because
Jawan
during
Howard
that
and all
period,
them. Yeah,
during that period, we had one of my favorite bullets of all time. Wes Unseld was running the team, and Wes was like he was like one of these dudes, like he just couldn't deal with the younger players. He couldn't deal with the younger players. He didn't know how to manage them.
that's a good point.
He couldn't manage it, so he was getting them out of town. You're absolutely right. There was a time when we could have had. I mean, the Bullets / Wizards have messed things up since the days of them winning the NBA championship.
Yeah, you know what? That is true. You know
Since
that is absolutely true.
It's the late
Yeah.
70s. And I'll tell you when it started. You're a Carolina guy. I'll tell you exactly when it started.
Uh-oh.
We had Mitch Kupchak on the
Yes,
team,
yeah.
on the
Yes,
team,
yeah.
and we could have gotten Walter Davis, and they picked Greg Ballard. And from then on, it's been downhill, man, because I was like, how in the world are you not going to put these Carolina teammates on the same team?
Yeah, man. Yeah, and that was in the day when these guys played for a while together. Yeah, Walter Davis, that would have been perfect. I never forget about that. My uncle, I remember him talking about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man,
that was wild. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And then I was like, I wasn't a hardcore basketball fan,
Mm.
but okay, we passed. But when they said the Bullets got Greg Ballard, I was like, who? I'm still saying who? Who is this dude? I was like, I couldn't believe it, man. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, there's some teams that have made some wild picks, but you know what?
We got Andre Blatch. We got
Kwame Brown.
Kwame Brown. That
Yeah.
was like, and we just have bad people running the team. I mean, even though,
Yeah.
even though Michael Jordan, greatest, not all great players can run teams well.
Right.
And at that time, he was very new at it, and he was terrible.
Yeah,
he was terrible.
He was awful. He still had the itch to play ball, and we saw what happened. We saw how that ended.
Yeah.
The Wizards, they've done some things that are very questionable, and so that's why when I look, okay, let's look at it this way, because for me, I don't say it's rigged. I think some people just have the luck of the draw. Like okay, we're talking about the Wizards and Cavs, right?
Right.
Okay, both of those teams have had the most number one picks out of all the teams. Both have had 6. Okay, we just talked about some of the great players they've had.
Yeah.
And what have they done? Just messed it up.
We've messed it up. We've had some. Now I would say, and I don't have it in front of me, or I can't necessarily pick them all from memory, but I would say 3 of those. If you say it's 6, I'll say half of those. 3 of those 6 years were not great draft years, in my opinion.
Okay.
I mean,
I could see that. I was never.
I mean, like when we got John Wall, people were saying, I mean, just like they were saying, Cooper Flag was going to be the number 1 pick this year, whoever gets it. People were saying John Wall is going to be the number 1 pick when they get it. Now, to me, John Wall, nothing against John Wall. I mean, he's a very talented player, but he reminded me, and this is an old school guy. You remember Randy Smith used to play for the Buffalo Braves?
Yeah.
And all he was fast.
Right.
He was fast, but he wasn't anything else but fast. He played with Bob McAdoo. He got some assists off, but he was fast. That's all John Wall.
Hey, look, the Clippers. Yeah. So yeah. The Buffalo Braves, the Clippers. Yeah. So.
That's all John Wall. To me, John Wall's thing was he was a fast guard. Great. But to me, I just never, there's some players who, to me, and that was back in the day when you spent, even though he was the one and done, these people spent a little time in college.
Well, yeah, you get a different type of player when you stay in college for a while. And what's so funny about it, these colleges are not looking for high school players. They're looking for older players.
Right.
You got kids that have always reclassing, which is funny about, you look at Anthony Edwards and Cooper Flag, they both reclassed up instead of going down, which, these kids can ball, but you have a bunch of kids that are older. And when you look at a lot of colleges now, a lot of these colleges, the mid D1s, the lower D1s, but those D1 schools are looking for older players so that they can compete against the Big 5 conferences, the big boys. And it's leveling the playing field. You see how people's brackets are getting all jacked up and messed up. You can't count on anything with that. So when I talk about how things are changing on that level, when you look at the draft for this year, just this year, I look at it that a lot of teams have positioned themselves for the draft because of that one thing with players being older. Because you can get a player like my man Dalton Connect, junior college, Tennessee player. Everybody's talking about, damn, he's 24. He's old when he gets in the NBA. I'm like, yo, old, young, whatever. Do you want a player that can play?
Right.
Do you want a player that can play? But you got certain coaches, some places, I actually believe that they're able to judge that. You look at how the Celtics rebuilt.
Right.
You know, they're down for a second, but they're able to rebuild quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Lakers, same way. You got that coach, you got that there. But then you got some teams that just have the luck of the draw. San Antonio, they've got, first of all, David Robinson, that was big.
Right.
Then Tim Duncan, and now Wemby. And they have, would you say, like very low chances to get that. I believe San Antonio was low as well. So
Right.
I mentioned the players to talk about all the shuffling that's going on. And now, with all these players that are available that people may not know about, San Antonio has the second pick this year,
Right.
and I believe the 10th pick.
Right.
So everybody's talking about how Dallas, which that is a good story, with it possibly being rigged, you know, something of that nature. What, you know, I don't believe that's the case.
Right.
But when you look at the storylines that they create, it makes you begin to think. LeBron in Cleveland, Kyrie after LeBron leaves, AD after CP3 leaves.
Right.
And I just think it's a big coincidence, but
It might be, but it's, you know, it's a coincidence.
Yeah, you know, look, it's a coincidence that I would be a fool not to be able to listen to somebody and say, you know what, you might have a point.